I think I will ask you to move to the first row.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for attending an inauguration of a postgraduate studies, Africa, business and beyond. This is a great honor for me that now I can welcome all today's guests at the university. Especially, I would like to welcome the former President of Germany, Mr. Horsta Köhlera. The former President of Poland, Mr. Aleksander Kwaśniewski. Among guests of our ceremony are ambassadors whom I would like to welcome. His Excellency Mr. Salah Lebdiou, the Ambassador of Nigeria. His Excellency Mr. Domingos Kulolo, the Ambassador of Angola. Also, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Mr. Chris Potter, Charge d'Affaires ad interim from the Embassy of the Republic of South Africa. His Excellency Mr. Andrzej Łupina, the former ambassador in African countries. Mr. Mehdi Wagner from German Embassy. Professor Peter Fury from Stellenbosch University. Mr. Jarosław Sroka, board member at Kulczyk Holding. Mrs. Jusleski, the Minister of the Supervisory Board in ASECO. Mr. Wojciech Han from the White Advisory. I would also like to welcome all the professors from different universities and institutes who have come here to take part in our ceremony. I would like to welcome all the lecturers of New Studies about Africa and obviously all our students. Dr. Jan Kulczyk, who our great idea in Poland. He was aware that fruitful cooperation with partners from Africa would demand highly educated people who understand their partners as well as specific conditions in various parts in Africa. Mr. Piotr Felkel, co-founder of our university, became enthusiastic about this idea. Today, we are putting this idea into practice. Then it is especially great pleasure for me to welcome Mrs. Anna Felkel and Mrs. Dominika Kulczyk. We welcome these persons at inauguration of the studies initiated by Dr. Jan Kulczyk and Mr. Piotr Felkel. Both persons were deeply involved in the project. Professor Mikołaj Cześnik from our university will talk to you about the program of New Studies. The studies offer a unique opportunity to bring together representatives of the academic community, policymakers, and business people who are all connected in their ambition to tackle the problems of Africa. We are delighted to have you here at the university to share your experience and to contribute to the development of our new studies. Thank you for coming. I wish you a very pleasant stay at our university.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a press officer of the University of Social Sciences and Humanities, I would like to ask head founder, initiator, and the executive director.
Szanowni Państwo, Panowie Prezydenci, Ekscelencje, Szanowny Panie Rektorze, Panie, Panowie Profesorowie, drodzy wykładowcy, znakomici goście oraz szanowni studenci. Mój tato bardzo cenił afrykańskie przysłowia. Wśród nich szczególnie upodobał sobie dwa. Ktoś musi posadzić drzewo, żeby potem ktoś mógł odpoczywać w jego cieniu. To pierwsze z nich. Bo dla Jana Kulczyka zawsze najważniejszy był człowiek, jego dzieło, które z czasem staje się świadectwem jego siły, uporu, talentu oraz mocy jego nieposkromionej wyobraźni. A jego życiową misją był obowiązek, by świat pozostawić po sobie lepszym, niż się go zastał. Tak, by innym było lżej, lepiej, beztrosko, szczęśliwie. Obowiązek, by tworzyć z myślą innych i dla innych, żeby zmiana, którą się kreuje, była zmianą stałą, na lepsze. Nieustanny nakaz, by zachęcać do wspólnego odkrywania nowych światów, pionierskiego życia, ukrytej wiedzy i przełomowych doświadczeń. Czasem pod prąd, czasem pod wiatr, ale zawsze w jednym świadomie obranym kierunku. Dlatego właśnie dzisiaj tu jesteśmy i wspólnie ruszamy w nową, niezwykłą, biznesową, afrykańską przygodę. Przygodę i misję i podróż, o której marzył mi tato. Dzięki jego wizji, za sprawą jego wyobraźni i uporu. Jeśli lubisz miód, nie powinieneś bać się pszczół. Nie powinieneś się bać. To drugie z jego ulubionych afrykańskich przysłów. Od dzisiaj także, mam nadzieję, Państwa motto, drodzy słuchacze. Bo to hasło odkrywców, hasło zdobywców, ludzi, którzy się nie boją. Docierać tam, gdzie ich jeszcze nie było, poznawać to, czego jeszcze nie wiedzą. To hasło prawdziwych studentów biznes in Africa and beyond. Dziękuję uprzejmie.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very happy that we are finally starting with the project. I want to give you just the main facts about the program. The inspiration for the program came from two Polish businessmen, the late Jan Kulczyka and Pierwsze. They were the inspiration for our program. The second thing that I want to emphasize about this project is that there are several institutions involved in the creation of the program. First of all, our university, the University of Social Sciences and Humanities. Then our main business partner, the Kulczyk Investments. The Stellenbosch University, which is our main academic partner. And finally, the Council of Investors in Africa. What is quite unique about the program is the diversity of the lectures. I strongly believe that this is the key fact about, and the most important fact about the program. We have both academics and non-academics. Among the non-academic lecturers, we have politicians, we have businessmen, we have practitioners. And in terms of the academic stuff, there are people with very different backgrounds, actually. There are political scientists, there are sociologists, there are psychologists, there are economists. Finally, there are several people that who were involved in the creation of the program. And they are listed here, and I want to thank them for their devotion, their input, and I strongly believe that the program is really a way to get all the necessary competences and skills which are needed in order to. Morris will tell you about the details of the program. Andrzej, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mikołaj. So I'm challenging and quite scary because let's face the facts. Africa is 30 million square kilometers. It is over 50 countries around the ethnic groups. And in the worst case scenario, according to the Doing Business reports, you need 1,600 documents to drive a lorry from one country to another. And how are you going to core this? We have just 208 hours of classes. Simply mission impossible. So we decided to divide the program, Making Africa. It is being led by Professor Milewski, Bachmann, and Markowski, and this pillar will disseminate general knowledge on sub-Saharan Africa among our students. The knowledge from this pillar will be utilized for our issues. Professor Boski and his team will focus on the working place, working conditions, adaptations to the new environment, as well as the African psychology. There will be also a few courses devoted to the linguistic issue, English African, how shall we communicate, and a pillar, Engaging Africa, is devoted to doing business in sub-Saharan Africa. We'll focus on the space, we'll focus on various layers and ways of engaging the continent. And that's where our motto will meet. We're enrolled, know how to do business, and we know Africa. So let's work together in order to tap this into tap this knowledge. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to, as the owner of the University, to deliver introduction and inauguration lecture.
Dear Professor Elias, dear President Wisniewski, dear Dominika, Mrs. Völker, I'm happy to be here with you. I'm happy to see that one of the many dreams of Jan Kulczyk is becoming true today. A Polish postgraduate program on business in Africa. That the man who invited me to speak to you on this occasion is absent. Jan Kulczyk passed away much too early. There was so much that he still wanted to do. When I first met Jan Kulczyk, it was in 2011, he had approached me because he was interested in my experience with Africa. It was immediately clear to me that he was not the... He talked to me about politics and arts, about philosophy and history, and I almost forgot that I had the most he saw in the human race. He as a person was of such subtlety, of such warm-heartedness and curiosity, with just a touch of eccentricity, that to me, Jan, the human being, as Kulczyk, the businessman. It was our common passion for Africa that bound us together. He, as the shrewd businessman that he was, understood much earlier than most others that the growth potential of Africa is enormous and that investing there would be beneficial for all sides. And yet, making money in Africa was never a stand-alone goal. he had a deep and sincere commitment to helping the African peoples to live up to their potential and give the men and women of Africa a chance for life in dignity. It is in his honor that I would like to speak today. So please allow me to name this keynote speech. And I'm particularly pleased, dear Dominica, that you are here today with us. But I find it still incredibly difficult to adhere to the first one, speaking about Africa, entitled On the Impossibility of Speaking of Africa, in which I point for any European talking about this huge continent. First, the historical relationship between Europe and Africa is fraught with exploitation. Can we say Africa? In reality, except as a geographical appellation, Africa does not exist. End of quote. Kapuscinski. Indeed, Africa is unclear. Do we mean the entire continent, including North Africa? Or do we mean sub-Saharan Africa? Can we really expect a single word, Africa, to encompass the contrast between such vast countries as the Democratic Republic of Congo and such tiny ones as Burundi, between desert states and ocean islands? Beyond mere geography, can our concept of Africa really embrace the complex social and cultural reality of this continent? One of the world's 20 most ethnically diverse nations is in Africa. Our awe at its sheer diversity must prompt us to show humility when we speak of Africa. Without that humility, any attempt at sweeping statements, coherent version of a selective truth. So when I speak of Africa today, please bear in mind that my speech cannot be anything else but incomplete. I will not be able to do justice to Africa's diversity, and I start with the youth. I'd like to make a quick experiment with your imagination, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine that the population of Warsaw would double within the next 3 decades. Imagine that 2/3 of the inhabitants would be under 30 years old. What do you imagine would happen in Warsaw if all these young people would remain without any perspective for a decent job, without any hope of being able to live a dignified life? For Africa, these numbers could, the doubling of the population to over 2 billion people in 2050 is probable. By then in Africa there will live 20% of the world's population. In Europe, only 5%. Already today, Africa has the biggest youth population in the history. These youth want what young people want all over the world. In Poland, in Germany, in the US, all over the world. To learn, to work, to have a say, to live. And yet, only a fraction of them has a chance for a job in the formal sense of 60% of Africa's official is the big strategic answer of Europe and the world to all of that. However, I do not think that this forecast of trouble due to a youth bulge does justice to the African youth. And light in reinvigorating old, irrational and racist European fears of the black man? No. First and foremost, I see, and I want us all to see, the huge potential that lies in the African youth. The potential. Why would we want to waste the opportunity of profiting from the minds and strength of hundreds of millions of our fellow? That 6 out of 10 of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa this year, from 5% in 2014. Many African economies are under increased pressure due to declining commodity prices, especially oil, as well as due to lower demand from China. Additionally, global financial conditions for the region have tightened, make it more difficult to get men. The good news, hidden in this bad news, is that those Africans who have always advocated for a different African growth model are now being better heard. It is increasingly clear and must belong to the past. A new generation of leaders is now pushing for a structural transformation of African economies that could finally deliver on the promise that this huge and resource-rich continent will become a new hub of global growth. I see all the credentials that this may and will. The goal of that structural transformation is clear. Diversification of the economy and growing value addition in Africa, in particular through industrialization, a modern services sector, and the creative industries. Only this will create the millions of jobs that are needed. Building blocks for that transformation have been defined, for example, by the African Development Bank, which has 5 central operational priorities: infrastructure, regional integration, private sector development, governance and accountability of natural resources that is ecologically unsustainable and will drive the planet, if continued unabated, to the brink of disaster. Global warming is just one of the many urgent warning signals. If prosperity could only be attained on the